So, Doctor, in terms of, you've also mentioned, because we're talking about teenagers especially, and these days, the experimentation which we talked about earlier. In your book, you mentioned that being ready for sex, you have to be ready at both level, mind and body. If you want to elaborate that, what would you mean by that?
See, again, as I said earlier, for every action, there is a equal and opposite reaction. Newton's third law. For every action, there is consequence. Good, bad, whatever kind of consequence. Unless you are able to take the responsibility of the consequences, and unless you know all possible consequences, don't engage into that activity. I'm not talking only about sex. First of all, you should be mature enough to understand implications, consequences of whatever you are doing. You are gone on a holiday with friends and you are walking on the edge of a valley, or where the and you may just slip and fall. You are being irresponsible, or you are going where it could be dangerous to go. I'm not talking about sex at all. Something similar. You have to know the consequences of what you are doing. And if you are ready to, the consequences, and you are able to take the responsibility of the consequences, only then engage into that particular activity, whether it is sex or any other kind of an activity. That's what I say, when the person is not just above 18 cannot be the parameter. You could be absolutely stupid even at 80, and you could be sharp even at the age of 14. The Gyaneshwar wrote Gyaneshwari when he was 14 years old, but that does not mean all 14-year boys are as sharp as him. Is like that. So it is no particular age that you can say you are ready or not ready. Just because you have a strong desire doesn't mean you are ready. That's what the interpretation most of the people do. Oh, I have a strong desire to have sex, so I think I'm ready. But do you know what it takes and what could happen? And not just because you could get a girl pregnant or you can transmit a sexually transmitted disease. There are other possible consequences also. Are you aware of that? And are you ready to take the responsibility of that? Then only engage into that activity. So I always say readiness is not a particular age. It is a level of maturity where your consequential thinking has developed to a mature level. Then you are ready, because for a sexual act, there are always consequences.
And I think what you're saying, therefore, is, how aware are you, readiness from that lens, how much you understand the implications of your behavior.
Absolutely.
That's the aspect of readiness. And are you able to take that, when you're taking that decision, the consequence of that, you are able to deal with those consequences? Do you have that? Because the implication when you talked about last time was at family level, at an individual level, stigma, and with social media, these things remain for life, and it can be very traumatic. Yes. For you and the family of either sexes, male or female.
Also, when you are engaging into a sexual act with someone, it is not just your readiness. Exactly. It is the partner's readiness is equally important. How ready is the other person? Not only sexually ready, that one could be aroused and feel that I'm ready, but that's not the readiness I'm talking about. There should be matching of understanding what exactly we are engaging into, what we are doing. Are we aware? Are we aware of the consequences of it? Are we ready for it? That is why we say we have created an institute of marriage. Why we say we get married only beyond a particular age? Because we presume that beyond that age you are adult, you are mature, you are capable of taking responsibility. And marriage institute binds you in a set of rules which you should follow, which are for your own good as well as for the good of the society.
Great point out. And also, it's such an irony that as the child is growing up, the child begins by saying no for a lot of things, right? When you start, you want this, no. He or she is so clear on his yeses and nos, and we admonish sometimes the no's when the child is growing up. And now, when you are moving in this direction, you are not used to saying no, because your non-assertive side of you is become more and more strong unknowingly. And now if the parents are actually communicating to you that, hey, learn to say no, that no doesn't come easily, and it's very difficult. So how, it's like, it's a very contra thing, doctor. Then how can child be taught being assertive and have a own self-respect at these times when he or she has to say no?
See, there is a concept in transactional analysis that we have three ego states, all of us. And one of the three is a child ego state. And this child ego state is further divided into three parts in all of us. This is true with all of us. These three parts of child ego state is a free child, compliant child, and rebellious child. All of us have all these three components in our child ego state. That we are free child, that's where we love fun, we enjoy, we laugh, dance when we have friends. What is active at that time? A free child in us is active. Even if a man is adult, and let us say even he's a grandfather, the grandfather is playing with his grandson. That time, what is operational? That grandfather's child ego state is operating. Then there is another child ego state, which is compliant child, which is Aggyakari child. So whatever elders say, he say yes, 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 follow the instruction. But there is also a third aspect of it, rebellious child. Rebellious child who says no. All these three are part of us, and all these three should exist in us throughout our life. If because of parental influence or society influence, if any one of these three are reduced or diminished or non-existing, it's not healthy for us. So there is a rebellious part in which we says no has to be strong. There is a compliant child ego state which also should be strong, and the free child. And we should be able to using all these three aspects of our child ego state, and then you are a healthy adult human being. So often what happens, parents expect child to say follow them. So they want the child to be a compliant child all the time. So whenever child is rebellious child, they punish him. Some parents even beat up the child. They abuse the child. So slowly, child suppresses his rebellious ego state to such an extent that it is non-existent. Now this child will never be able to say no to anyone because you have trained him to not say no ever. That is why feel happy if your child says no. Feel happy if your child is rebellious, there are times. And feel happy as this aspect of my child is intact. And I'm not going to suppress. So never be very harsh with your children. Of course, physically beating up the children should never be done at any stage by a parent to a child ever, or in whatever situation, because that's when you are killing an aspect of the child completely. And that remains as a scar, and that affects his entire personality for the rest of his life. So feel happy that your child says no. Feel happy if he says yes, and feel also happy when he's just enjoying himself. So see your child developing with all these three aspects of his child ego state, and then you have done well as a parent, that now he is capable of saying no when it is necessary to be said no, and he's capable of saying yes when it is necessary to be said yes, and he's also capable of enjoying himself like a free child. That's what I tell, rather than being worried about this aspect. When will I teach my child to say no? But you have only taught him to only say yes, and now suddenly you want him to say no. You wanted your daughter to listen to you all the time, so you was screaming at her, shouting at her, discipline at her. So she only says yes. And now when her dominating boyfriend also forces her to have sex with her, she's simply going to say yes to that because she doesn't know how to say no.
Very, very important point out. I think it's so beautifully and so easily it's understandable. The free child, rebellious child, and how can you not suppress that? That's great. And Doctor, in terms of today's time is such where you are a boyfriend or a girlfriend, you are in a relationship, and some sense of ownership comes in. You own the other person in some form or the other, and there's a lot talked around consent. Yeah, and the consent, every individual is unique. So what the parents should know and teach first, what should they know about the aspect of consent, and how do they communicate that that the child develops and appreciates the importance of consent when he or she is doing anything related to sexual act or sexual relationship?
It is not just about sexual act and sexual relationship. See, consent is not to be taught like a school lesson. It is to be demonstrated. For example, even if your child is growing, let us say he's 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and you are a father, or let us say you are a grandfather. Even if you are interacting with your child, it is always a good to ask the child his permission. For example, oh, can I pick you up? Is also perfectly okay. Can I take this thing? Is so slowly when you demonstrate that even I take your consent, even if I am taking your pencil for just or your eraser from you, I'll ask, can I take your eraser for a moment? The father will say, why should I ask my son? I have only bought it for him. But in a way, in being so blatant about it, but taking his, and children don't like it. Don't take mine. That time they don't think Papa has only given. But then there are fathers who suddenly say, what do you mean mine? I have only given it to you. See, the father is behaving childish. You need to demonstrate that respect. You need to demonstrate that, the consent comes from, what is consent? Consent means respecting the other. You can't violate other person. And the other person may be your wife, your girlfriend, your child also. And in your growing as a parent, if you are respecting your child, you are even teaching the way I respect you, you respect me. And children learn it only with observation. If the parents are polite, child is bound to turn out to be a polite because he sees that. If parents are rude and they don't follow basic rules of communication, child is going to learn from them. That is why we say mother tongue. The child learns from mother how? Through observation. Not only the mother tongue, but everything else children learn from the parents. So as far as consent is concerned, child will not violate someone's space if he has seen his parents have never violated even his space. Even you are entering your son's room, knock, no? Can I come in? Or why can't I just walk in? But he may also require his privacy. The parents who simply go into the bathroom also when they are having a bath. How could you do that? Will you like when someone enters your bathroom and you're having a bath just because he's a child and you are an adult or a father? You're violating, and then you're teaching. It's okay to do this. So one day child will also violate this with someone else. He said, my father always did it with my mom, with me, with anyone. So I learned from my father. So as far as consent is concerned, it is not taught like a lesson. Of course, you can do that also. But one has to demonstrate it. One has to demonstrate it in your everyday conduct in your life. And that's when you teach people ki don't violate someone's space or privacy. Don't invade. Always take permission.
That's the key. Okay. Also, there are, like, suppose you have got into it as the child has got into this, and a lot of times parents also talk about or the children acknowledge with their parents that I made a mistake. I got into a sexual relationship. I have done certain steps which I shouldn't have taken. How to, because you've never got exposed to something like this as a parent, because you always believed that your values is what the child will carry, and you suddenly are surprised by such a revelation. So at one end I have to, as a parent, deal with my shock as well as acknowledge or support the child shift from the guilt which the child is feeling. How do I make that, what is right, what is wrong, especially in the at the guilt stage for the children?
If the child or any person, I must say, when he realizes his mistake, at whatever age, whatever stage, whatever mistake, whichever area, not only mistake in the area of sexuality, whoever, whenever he truly realizes his mistake and he admits his mistake and he says that I realized this was a mistake and I should not have done this, I will never do the same mistake ever again. Actually, that very point that person requires to be forgiven. However grave you felt that the mistake was, but he has understood it. He has realized it. He is kind of repentful of it. And all guilt is not bad. There is a good guilt and there is a bad guilt. Good guilt is good because that good guilt is going to make you change your behavior which was hurting you or the other or society. So if your child has realized the mistake, don't rub it in. On the contrary, appreciate the fact that he has seen the mistake and he is now going to change it. On the contrary, appreciate that in the child, respect him for that, and child will not go back to that behavior. But here the child admits and the father slaps the son. Now, what signal are you going to give? That if you admit a mistake, you will be beaten up, you will be punished. So child will never admit. He will continue to do that in his life and never come back and even admit to the child, to the parent, until one fine day parent realizes, my God, what he has been doing. Just because you have not been treating him properly. So again, what kind of relationship you have developed with your child from childhood till now, and how you are developing it on a daily basis is very, very important.
At that point in time, what does the child really need, especially at that zone? Because he or she may be then speaking to his or her friends about it, not feeling comfortable. Like the very fact the person is coming and talking, what kind of state that person is, and if you add on top of it by physically
Beating up.
acknowledging or verbalizing that this person has not done. I mean, what can be the implication of that?
Yeah, first of all, let your child open up. Don't interrupt. Let him talk. Let him speak it up while you are just being a good listener and not giving any kind of signals through your body language, through your expressions, by being judgmental about it. The way counselors function, ideally a counselor should function. Listen to him, understand where he's coming from, and not only what is he saying, how is he feeling while he's saying, and acknowledge that I fully understand where you are coming from. So I tell you, it is such a powerful tool when you respond to a person and the person feels understood, person feels accepted. Then there is the line is open between two of them. What we call in psychological terms, you have entered into the frame of reference of a person. The person feels understood by you. Yes, you are exactly getting from where I'm coming from. And then, if at all he's making a mistake, but he's not realizing it is a mistake, then it can be told from your adult space or parental space. You are not understanding because that element of the consequences you are not aware of. Very, very often children came, if I knew that this would happen, I would have never done it. Why children, even adults say that, if this was the repercussion I ever knew, I would have not done it. So that is why it is a responsibility of a parent, of teachers, of a society to develop this consequential thinking in every person through education, formal as well as informal education, which is very, very necessary. And which all of us have made a mistake. Everyone, there is no one who can say that I have not made a mistake. And all of us have done some very serious mistakes in our life. But the moment we realize those were mistakes, as long as you don't make the same mistake again, it's perfectly okay to make mistakes. I always say that. Who says that you should not make a mistake? Make a mistake, but don't repeat the same mistake again. Make new mistake every day. No issue.
You also gave a great analogy that day on a pressure cooker has a whistle that releases. At this point in time, when you hear such a news which you don't expect from your daughter or from your son, there is a pressure at that moment. Now, at that moment, that pressure should you release by communicating upfront or walking out and taking time out? Because sometimes it's good to take that time out because you're not in a emotional state to take that shock yourself.
See, again, you are giving a lot of importance to how you are feeling as a parent. What your daughter is going through, she's much younger than you. She's herself traumatized, or she's herself shocked. She's herself feeling down in the dumps. And you want to time out yourself? No, that's not fair. Be there. You are a father, you are a mother. Even if you don't know how to react, don't react. Don't react this way or that way. Just be there with her because she needs to be supported. However big mistake she has done, but she has come to you because you are a parent. And there is one acute need. And then there is something that you can provide with the time. One is that she immediately requires support, like a first aid is required by being there for her. Nothing is going to happen next second. You can deal with any situation in your life if you take it calmly, rather than reacting to it, respond to it. Rather than immediately by screaming, shouting, punishing, slapping, what are you doing? You are making a big mistake. So on the contrary, you're going to push your child to do similar or some different kind of bigger mistakes in future, and he will not even come and approach you ever. So, as I said earlier, mistakes happen, and they happen out of ignorance, or they are done deliberately. Raise your child such a way that child will not deliberately make a mistake, but if at all mistakes happen, they happen because of ignorance. And why is the child ignorant? You and the educational institutes are responsible to keep the child well informed. That is why I said sex education is keeping them well informed about everything. If they are educated, they will take informed decisions. If you don't educate them, then they out innocently also land up doing something which may turn out to be a big mistake. As I told you yesterday, a girl from the age of 12 and 13 getting pregnant and she doesn't know how she got pregnant. So innocent she is that someone landed up, seducing her to get into the act, and she doesn't even know this act can lead to being pregnant. So innocent she was with the whole thing. Why? Because she's ignorant. But if she was educated, she was given the proper sex education, she would not engage into anything like that. So when we make mistakes, we make a mistake either deliberately, consciously, or it has happened by mistake because of the ignorance, because of not having the proper knowledge. And if the mistake is because of lack of knowledge or because of ignorance, never punish that person. Deal with that situation for that moment and subsequently educate the person.
Acceptance is the key, because even in the education arena, we see that critical age groups, 8th grade, 10th grade, people take dire steps just before the results or after the results. I think that also is an implication. You don't realize, you don't feel comfortable talking to your parents about that.